It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Cats and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And now, who do we have, Rita?
We've got a great guest, everybody. We've got Dr. William Parker. He is the CEO of Parker Maritime Technologies, former CEO and president of the East-West Institute. And Dr. Parker, huge news today. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, does a surprise visit over there to Ukraine. What was he doing over there?
Well, this is, first of all, great to be back on your show again. This is another visit to a war zone, and a lot of folks go over there, and every time they do, they place folks in danger that are tasked with protecting them. So I think we need to be very careful when we continuously are sending senior people from the administration over to be protected for a good photo op. That said, Garland testified on the Hill that Russia has committed crimes against humanity, and that's what he's talking about, the fact that we should go after Russia legally for crimes against humanity and other activities that they've been embarked in.
But how long is that going to take? I mean, you think about, I covered Kosovo with, Milosevic. It was like forever until they actually bring somebody up on it. I mean, is that realistic, or is that just politics, or do you think they're really going to do it?
I think they'll do it eventually, but I think it's politics for the near term.
Wow. Carolyn Maloney, I mean, you were a congresswoman. I think you went to the Far East all the time. And any opinion on that?
Well, I think you have to balance. The policymakers have to be on the ground to see what's going on and to assess it. And you'd be surprised how when you're on site, it's very different from what you're reading in the papers. And you always get briefings right from the area, and people tell you simultaneously what they're feeling. And it's important. I want to ask Dr. Parker, if I could. I know he's an expert in this area. How do we bring peace? How in the world can we get everybody at the table and diplomatically solve this? It seems like everyone is dug into their positions, and we are galloping towards a third world war if we don't watch out. So how can we...
Congresswoman, I think it's a great question that you asked there, and I think the answer is we need to avoid the Thucydides trap if we can, something that we haven't done a very good job of so far, where you have a rising power challenging an established power, and when that happens, the dominant power is likely to respond with significant violence, and that's what we're seeing. John and I sat in his office about 2 years ago talking about this very issue and said one way to avoid this is to make sure that the president of Russia understands that there will be a significant event that will happen if he invades the country. And you will notice he invaded at one point in Crimea, where it was Russia and mostly Russia. And then he didn't invade for a long period of time. And then you have a new administration, and now he's decided to grow again. But part of this is because as you look at how we dealt with leaving Afghanistan, if you look at how we deal with the strength of our borders or lack thereof, people are seeing weakness, they're smelling blood in the water, and they're going after it and say, this is my shot if I'm ever going to go into Ukraine. So to avoid that, I think we need to go and say, look, we're done with this. You've got exactly 15 days to get out of country. If you don't get out, we're going to establish a no-fly zone, and after that, everything's a target.
Governor Paterson, it looks like you got something there.
Well, I was surprised that that we might go that far, but it could come down to that.
What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I hope it doesn't.
No, I hope it doesn't also, but there is a point that you can't keep making concessions because the Chinese and the Russians do the same thing. The Chinese are actually better at it. They keep talking about peaceful cooperation and that kind of thing. Meanwhile, they're spending money in our universities. They're spending money in parts of this country that are now akin to their point of view, thinking that this is an attempt to get the countries to work together. But if you go back and you read some of the documents that the people running these countries have written, they are trying to take over the world and adopt world communism, especially the Chinese. They have a year, 1949. And you know who said it? President Xi. He said it first in 1998 when he wasn't president. Then he said it again in 2018 when he was.
So, Dr. Parker, that's a great point about the influence of China and also them getting closer to Russia, maybe arming Russia. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are if you buy into the theory that the enemy of our enemy is my friend, then China and Russia will likely join forces. more formally, and they'll bring with them countries like Belarus and Venezuela, Iran, and North Korea. But the country nobody's talking about is India, which continues to buy cheap oil and most of its weapons from Russia while consistently voting against the United States and the UN. And I think this is one we need to be pressing on a regular basis.
Why are we not? You know, and you bring up a great point,
And
Dr.
that's
Parker.
a lot of people. That's 1.4 billion people.
Yeah, and we have a great relationship with India, too.
Well,
I can't, supposedly.
We thought we had a great relationship with Turkey, and they wake up every morning deciding which side they're on.
Yeah, what can't we do something, Dr. Parker?
Well, I think you need to start with what companies are owned by very senior Indians in this country, like Google, for example. So do a search. It has to go through Google for the most part. Who runs it? Well, the CEO happens to be an Indian American, and that's the case with Microsoft. It's the case with Apple. It's the case with a lot of very large companies right now. So I think we need to look at that. I think we need to look at how TikTok is communicating with our people right now. And the reality is, when you take that and you look at the cost of food, transportation, housing, oil, all that stuff continues to go up, and yet you get some poor slug who happens to have been a veteran for a long time, is trying to run a business, can't get a penny from the government because all that money's going overseas. $76.8 billion to Ukraine so far.
Yeah, and another $400 million today. Go ahead, Judge.
Dr. Parker, it's Judge Richard Weinberg. Good to have you on the show again. I want to ask you, what do we do when we know that China has Taiwan in its sights? What do we do now to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Judge, I think you're absolutely right on what you just said. China is pushing the envelope here. They have stated that they will increase ties with the opposition party in Taiwan. They're increasing their flights and their military shipping in the region, et cetera. I think what we need to do is, again, I think it's peace through firepower. You can't send the Nimitz strike group by itself over there and say this is enough. It's not enough. If you're serious about something like this, we need to start building to build our military back up. The fact that we said 10 years ago that we were going to get overtaken by China with the largest Navy in the world, and everybody laughed when we said that. Here we are. We're now the second largest Navy in the world, and they are building very fast. We have a 20-year building plan to be half of the size that they are. That's our plan.
Wow, that's trouble for us. Wow.
I think so. We can ask the governor what he thinks of that, but I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, real quick, Gov, quick.
I think it's a bad idea, too.
All right, good. We're unanimous on that. Dr. Parker, great to have you here, the CEO of Parker Maritime Technologies. A really important topic. Thanks so much.